Next slide. Cognitive fusion. I wanted to give you a little example of that. Okay, and you'll remember that I mentioned that fusion, and cognitive fusion is another way of saying that, involves experiencing your thoughts as the real thing. So if you are willing, I would like to show you this, okay? And all I want you to do is be a good scientist and just observe what happens, okay? If you're willing, go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to imagine an apple, your favorite kind of apple, whatever kind that is. It might be a Granny Smith, it might be a Red Delicious, it might be a Gala, or some other kind of apple. Then I want you to imagine that you're holding it in your hand. I want you to imagine whether it's cool or warm. Has it just come out of the refrigerator, or was it perhaps sitting on the counter? And I want you to imagine that you're bringing this apple to your face. I want you to imagine what that apple smells like. Does it have a scent? Is it really fresh? You can kind of get that tang and sharpness of the apple. And now I want you to imagine taking a bite of that apple and noticing the juiciness or the crispness or the sweetness or the tartness as your teeth take a chunk out of that apple. And now I want you to imagine pulling it away from your face and noticing that you've just bitten off half a worm. Did anybody have kind of a disgust reaction? Okay. We didn't really have an apple. There are no apples here. There's a picture on the slide. And I created an apple for you out of thin air with only words. And yet, with those words, I was able, at least for some of you, to elicit a physiological reaction. Perhaps you were salivating at first. Perhaps you were hungry, thinking, I would like an apple. If you don't like apples, you may have been having an entirely different experience. Nonetheless, real. Okay? Fusion is experiencing our thoughts just like we did then as real. So ACT targets that through helping us notice these are just thoughts. And these physiological or emotional reactions are things that we can detach from and have some distance from. Okay. Moving on. The second half of the ACT model involves commitment and behavior change processes. And this involves the components on the right, that's my right hand, the right side of the model. I have trouble telling my right from my left still after all these years. Okay. And you notice on this side, we have values. Okay. Values I will talk about in a little while. But what you should know about them is when we say them in ACT, we don't mean your beliefs about right and wrong, and we don't mean goals. What we do mean are things that you care about, things that you hold most dear, the things that you would fight not to give up in your life. Committed action is the next behavior change process or next component of the ACT model. And what that means is acting with awareness in the service of your values, even in the presence of difficult emotions or experiences. So the nice piece about ACT, or one thing I really appreciate about ACT is that it does have this component, the acceptance and mindfulness processes, which allow us to attend to how we respond to our own internal experiences and how they organize our behavior. And at the same time, it provides us a technology for changing behavior, for helping people change their behavior. Just like our thinker and our doer here in this next slide. So to sum up the ACT model, this is really how we think about it. And I'm going to read it to you so you can follow along with me. Okay? We're going to start down at the self as context component at the bottom of this slide. Given a distinction between you and the stuff you are struggling with and trying to change, now we move to acceptance. Are you willing to have that stuff fully and without defense? Now to diffusion. As it is, not as it says it is. Now to contact with the present moment. At this time, in this situation, we'll go to values and committed action and do what takes you in the direction of your chosen values right now. If the answer is yes, if you are able to say yes to that and mean it, what you have is what we call psychological flexibility. And that is the goal of ACT treatment, whether it's used as an augmentative treatment with behavioral parent training or some other approach, or whether it's used on its own. Okay, psychological flexibility simply means the ability to do what you need to do in the service of the things that you care about, even if things are really, really overwhelmingly hard and difficult. So you may, after hearing this, start to be thinking, now I'm starting to see how this might help parents remain engaged in the very difficult work of behavioral parent training or ABA programming. So now I want to walk